You know, in many ways, the iPhone 16e is an aspirational phone. Now, I know that sounds weird for me to say that, but if you bear with me through to the end of the video, I think you might understand where I'm coming from. And also, why is the iPhone 16e so overlooked and so underrated? It makes no sense to me. I'm David, and this is D Talking Tech. As I say, I'll get back to why I think it's an aspirational phone a little bit later in the video. But first of all, just going back to when I first got my hands on this phone. When it came out, I think May, June time this year, it was a new device. I needed to make content. I bought the 16e. As far as I was concerned, I was going to make a couple of videos, pack it up, ship it back and get my money back. But you know what? I didn't. Instead, I ended up falling in love with it. And during the summer, more and more, I found myself reaching for the 16e rather than my 16 Pro Max, which goes against the grain. Yeah, sure, I need a Pro Max in my life. I'm shooting on a Pro Max right now. But the 16e just had something about it that was enchanting and endearing to it. I just ended up loving the thing. Now, the pricing that Apple have gone with the 16e is a little bit odd. If we just go through the three models that you can buy, it starts off at £599 for 128 gigs. Then you jumps up to £699 for 256 gigs, and it tops out at £899 for 512 gigs. Now, we've got the iPhone 17 pushing its heels really hard in the background. The iPhone 17 starts at £799. And of course, if you're looking at single camera phones as well, you've got the iPhone Air, the other side of that, much more expensive at £999. But both of those base configs come with 256 gigs. So if we're fair and compare the 16e with 256 to the iPhone 17 with 256, well, then there's only £100 between them. The 16e costs $699, 17, $799. That then is where I can see people are making the argument, well, surely for that extra £100, it's worth getting the 17 with the better battery and a couple of cameras. But I'm not so sure that that's necessarily the case, because £100 is still £100. Now, when we got our hands on the 16e, it was the first time we'd had a single camera iPhone for many, many years. And I think that was part of what appealed to me. It was that simplicity, the lack of wobble on the desk. It was really portable. I mean, it's only 2 grams heavier than the iPhone Air. That's how small and light this thing is. It's really petite. It's really easy to carry around. And I kind of fell in love with the aluminium design, and just everything about it appealed to me. It's got the glass on the back as well, which helps it make it feel quite premium. And okay, you've only got a choice of 2 colors. They've kept it very simple. So there's 3 storage configs and just black or white. But it's that simplicity that I kind of buy into and really enjoy about the 16e. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it resonated with you the same way with me, but I think it's almost a case of it's got too much now. When I take the Pro Max out, that's for work. That's for either videoing on or shooting pictures on. It's a work day. But I don't generally need all of the features that the 17 Pro Max has got featured on it at the moment. So I'm going to break this down into wins and losses. I'm going to start off with the wins because I think that's only fair, because there are a lot of wins. You've got a brilliant screen on it. It's a 6.1 inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. Now, it's only got Ceramic Shield on it, not the new Ceramic Shield 2, and that shows. The fact that it's got the earlier Ceramic Shield glass does mean that it's beginning to show some micro scratch. But don't forget, I don't use cases or screen protectors. This is the sort of phone you're probably going to want to take away on holiday with you. And it's got reasonable water resistance. I think it can withstand 6 meters of water for up to 30 minutes. So if you're taking it, say poolside or something, accidentally drops in a pool, you should be covered on that. I'm not suggesting you try it, but you should be okay on that. And it's got the A18 chip in it. Now that is really important as well. It's a current and recent chip. Okay, it's a slightly binned down version of the A18 chip. It's got a 6-core CPU and a 4-core GPU, but importantly, you've got 8 gigs of RAM, and of course that's important because it means it's Apple Intelligence ready. Now, don't go laughing at me. Apple Intelligence is beginning to filter through into our devices, and it's only going to become more and more prevalent over time. So if you're buying a phone now that could last you 3, 4, 5 years, buying it with a chip that's got enough grunt to run Apple Intelligence, I think is an important issue to make. One of the big things that I fell in love with the 16e for was its battery life. It is absolutely amazing. It could go 2-3 days without needing to be charged. It goes on and on and on. Okay, it's doing slightly less tasks, I guess you could argue, but it's just amazing. Now, part of that must be down to the fact that inside we had Apple's first modem, the C1 modem. We've now got the C1X modem in the iPhone Air, and both of those phones the battery life has surprised me on the Air, certainly, as you know, and on the 16E, it's just second to none. And I think a lot of that must be to do with the power efficiency of their own modems. They are, honestly, they make a huge difference. I think the call quality is slightly better as well, but certainly when it comes to power efficiency, they are amazing. If you're the sort of person that loves 5G, you get some 5G on the 16E as well. It's not the super fast 5G, obviously it depends where you live and what availability you've got, but on the iPhone 16E, you've got the sub 6 gigahertz 5G. So there is at least 5G availability on there, and you get the action button. Now that's useful as well, because it means that you can map certain features, where you want to launch a camera with it, visual intelligence with it, shortcuts, but you've got the action button. So they put quite a lot of feature sets on the phone. Not everything, but good enough to make it a really sturdy day-to-day trooper that you can take and use anywhere and do pretty much everything with. Now, clearly, we've got to talk about the camera. And again, I say the same as last week, look at your history. If you know you're the sort of person that does a lot of ultra-wide shots or a lot of tele shots, this clearly isn't going to be the phone for you. First of all, let's start off with the camera on the front. It's the basic 12 megapixel true depth selfie camera you get, but it gets the job done for most of the kind of selfie shots that you'd want to take. The main camera is a 2-in-1 48 megapixel Fusion main camera that was lifted straight from the iPhone 16. Now, as far as I remember it, no one said that the iPhone 16 had a poor camera setup. It does the job, it really does. It's not brilliant in low light, but it's usable. It's got a 1x or 2x, and that 2x, if you're brave enough, has got a 10x optical zoom as well. You can select to shoot in reasonably high res as well. You can select to shoot in either 24 or 48 megapixel, and you get a kind of a slimmed down selection of photo styles as well. So you can actually give your photos a little bit more color, a little bit more personality, and make them a little bit more yours. And if video's your thing, you record in 4K up to 60p. So again, the camera, not groundbreaking, but for the kind of phone it is, for the kind of people that are going to be using and buying this phone, I would imagine that camera is more than good. And again, it's like the display. The camera is typically Apple. You might not get the most cameras, but the camera you get gets a good job done. Also, something that's not directly to do with the iPhone 16e is how do you set up an iPhone? Recently, I didn't realize it was such a hot debate. I've been listening to podcasts, watching some podcasts, and there's been a lot of consternation, a lot of debate and conversation about the best way or the correct way to set up an iPhone. I do it device to device, you know, scan that little starry code, but I'd love to know, is that wrong? People are saying you have to do it via cable, via Finder. Let me know, how do you set up your iPhone? Am I doing it wrong? Is there a correct way to do it? Is there a definitive way to do it? I'll just be interested to know. Right, let's get back to the 16e and what I consider to be the losses. The biggest of those losses is the fact there is no MagSafe. I love MagSafe. I charge everything when I can via MagSafe. And for whatever reason, whether it was just a cost point or not, I don't know, but Apple didn't include MagSafe charging on here. You do get the slower form of Qi wireless charging, 7.5 watt Qi wireless charging on here. And I guess if you wanted to, you could go and buy a case with a magnetic ring on the back. At least then when you're in the car and want to use it for sat nav or something, you could pin it up in the car, you could pin it on your bedside table. That would be a workaround. I don't particularly like cases, but on the 16e, which isn't necessarily the most beautiful phone, maybe putting a case in there to get MagSafe attachment at least is the way to go. The front-facing camera doesn't have that new bells and whistles 18 megapixel dual capture camera either. Now, I've shown you how that works on previous videos for the Pro Max and the Air. I don't use it all the time, and as a content creator, it should be heaven sent for me to be able to hold the phone upright and shoot in landscape, but I will rarely use it. And yes, having the dual capture is kind of fun, kind of useful, but it's not something I think most people, again, it comes back to this phrase I'm going to use a couple of times: if you've never had it, you won't miss it. And that's certainly true of that feature as well. Also on the camera, there's no, obviously, as I mentioned, ultra wide or telephoto, and that's something you do need to take into consideration. You've got a fairly basic camera setup on here, but one that will get the job done. There's no dynamic island, it's not an always on display, and it's not ProMotion. Now, ProMotion, as you know, isn't a big thing for me, but it might well be for you. I'm guessing if you're going to game on here, and with an A18 chip, some gaming, I'm guessing, would be something you could do on here. Not being ProMotion might be an issue. For me, it's not. When I'm not the sort of person that scrolls around a lot quickly. I don't do gaming, which I guess is where ProMotion comes in most. And don't forget, I have got direct comparison. When I'm not using the 16e, I'm using the iPhone Air or the Pro Max, both of which have got ProMotion displays. You don't get the camera control button either, which took me some getting used to, because when the camera control button first came out, I forgot it was there. Then I trained my mind to use it. And now I always launch the camera using the camera control button. I don't use any of the other feature sets in it, but I use it to launch the camera. So when I pick up the 16E, when I'm using that again, my index finger goes there. Oh, it's not there. But there are plenty of other ways you can get into the camera. Let's face it, you could use the action button to get into the camera as well. And also, you don't get cinematic mode and you don't get action mode. But I guess, again, the kind of people that are going to be buying the 16E aren't necessarily the kinds that are going to be thinking about action shots as well. Is it the right time to buy a 16E if you're tempted? I think it's always a good time to buy a phone. And if you're wondering when the new one's coming along, sooner than you might think. Now, I don't really get into rumours on this channel. They kind of bore me and it's not what the channel's about. But the rumours are saying that the more budget phones are going to be brought forward to a spring release. So we can expect in probably April of next year for the 17E to come out. And the only new things I'm guessing we're getting on 17E will be a new chip and maybe Dynamic Island. Fingers crossed MagSafe, but I think that's pushing our luck. And also the iPhone 18 will be brought forward to release in the spring as well. Then in the autumn, we'll get the 18 Pro, 18 Pro Max, the Air 2, and also the first foldable iPhone as well. So the more premium phones towards the end of the year, the more budget phones in the earlier part of the year is what we're being told. Now, at the beginning of the video, I said, why is this overlooked and forgotten? And also, it's an aspirational device. Here is why I think it's an aspirational device. For £599, you can go and buy a brand new device that will bring you in to the Apple ecosystem. I remember when I was using BlackBerries and I really wanted to get my first iPhone and then I wanted to lead on to maybe an iPad and a Mac. But the phone is that gateway. The phone is the thing you kind of need at the centre of your Apple ecosystem. And you can go and get into the ecosystem on a brand new device of £599. That's why I think it's aspirational. And why, for my money, it's almost like your first car. You're going to look back at that first device that gets you into the ecosystem really fondly. It's always going to have a special place in your heart. And I know from reading the comments, many of you still think about your first phones that you had with real fondness. Why rely on a hand-me-down? Why wait for the family cycle of my phone's out of contract, you can have that phone? Or go and buy a used phone, you don't have any cycles it's had on the battery, you don't know how well it's been looked after. Why go through that angst? Why not just go and buy a new phone? You know from day one that it's yours, and also it's your first step into the ecosystem. And for £599, you get into CarPlay, AirDrop. You can mirror your iPhone to your Mac if you end up with a Mac. You can use AirPlay with the HomePods at home as well. For that money, it unlocks everything that Apple has to offer. That is why I think it's aspirational. There's a real beauty about these simple phones. I loved it with the iPhone Air, but that is a niche phone and it's stupidly expensive. This is kind of like, and it's interesting that the iPhone Air and the 16E have both been separated out from the rest of the range. They haven't been given the 17 number. They're separate, they're away. And I think that kind of points to the fact that they are their own devices. There's something I love about this simple way of life. There really is. And the 16E, as I said, was something I thought I was going to buy in return, but in the end, I fell in love with it. And why did I fall in love with it? Because it's simple, it's easy to understand, the battery life goes on forever and ever, and it's got a really good display on it as well. You tell me what's not to love about the iPhone 16E. Hold all the arguments, it's just a phone full of old parts. No, it's a good phone in and of itself. And I'm not saying here that it's a phone that's only suitable for older people or kids. It's a good phone. Full stop. For £599, it unlocks everything in the Apple ecosystem. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed my take on the 16E, subbing really does help me out. It honestly does. And if you'd like to receive my free video weekly newsletter, there's details of how you can do that. All you've got to do is leave me your details on my website, talkingtechandaudio.com, and you'll receive my free behind-the-scenes video weekly newsletter every Sunday afternoon. And if you've enjoyed me talking about the 16E here, the video that I'm going to leave you to watch now is some hidden features, some little gems that are hidden away on the iPhone 16E that I think is something you should really watch.